Well, as you know, Josh is not here. He was slated to preach today, and so he let me know, very early Saturday morning that he was not going to be here. So I was thinking about this, and let me just say up front that in some ways this is a continuation of what we talked about last week. And one of the things that I love about St. Matthew's is that you're a courageous crew who is willing to ask hard questions and face hard answers, even when they really are hard and make us uncomfortable. And today is going to be an exercise in that, so just sort of fair warning up front. This weekend I went up to Baltimore so that my older daughter and her husband could go out on a date, and we took care of Finley, and we had a great time. And I knew when I got up on Saturday, because I had the text from Josh that I was going to preach today, and obviously I didn't have anything prepared. And so I started thinking, okay, well, you know, it's the last Sunday of Epiphany. Next Sunday, or this Wednesday, Lent starts with Ash Wednesday, and it's the Gospel of Transfiguration, which we hear all the time, every year. We hear every year, and so you're familiar with it. And I thought, all right, well, what do we want to say about that? And I was thinking of something I'd just been reading, and it was by really one of the gurus in the world on building community. It's a guy by the name of Peter Block. And just an absolute master in what a community is, how you build community, the dynamics of community, although he tends to fly under the radar. But one of the things that he does is he asks these really hard questions. So he was in a community where there was a shooting, and he lived in that community, and they asked him to convene groups of people, and he got them together. And the first question he asked them was, what are you doing that makes this community less safe? Which is not how anybody expected the time together to begin, looking at themselves in the ways that they were complicit in what had happened, right? That's not where we like to start. We like to find somebody who can blame, and our whipping boy, and so on and so forth. So I was thinking about this question, and I thought, well, you know, an interesting question would be, what are you doing? What am I doing that makes the world less good? So not looking at anybody else, only looking at ourselves. What are you doing? What am I doing that makes the world less good? And I thought about that, and I thought, well, I'll just ask Christine and Kevin. They're interesting people, and I'd love to know their answer, and maybe that'll give me some thoughts of where to go with the sermon. So I said, what are you doing to make this world less good? And Christine, just sort of off the top of her head, said, well, she went to single-use plastics, which is an interesting place to go. And then her husband, Kevin, said, yeah, I think just the amount of garbage we generate in general. And so the follow-up question is, okay, why does that matter? Why does that matter in general? And then why does that matter to you in particular? So I said, Kevin, why does that matter to you? You know, of all the things, all the ways you could have answered, why does that matter? You know, that the way you see you're not doing good in the world is because you're generating a lot of trash. And he thought about it a second, and he's a very thoughtful man, and I appreciate it about him. And he said, the problem is, and this is really good, he says, I'm not humble enough to see my proper place in the world. And so I create an inordinate amount of garbage, a disproportionate amount of garbage in my life. And the reason I do that is because it's convenient, because I'm rich, and he's middle class, he's not, right? He's like you, like me. And he says, because I can. That's a pretty good answer. That's a pretty good answer. And we were thinking about that, and then Christine said, yeah, you know, I think it's more sins of omission, the things I'm not doing, than the things I am doing, the things that I could be doing that I'm not doing. And then she said, that reminds me of a quote. And she opened a book, and she found the quote, and she read it to us. And when it was done, I mean, literally, she was crying. Linda was crying. I had tears in my eyes. I didn't look to see if Kevin's eyes were moist also, and nobody could say anything. And I'm going to read you that quote, but let me give you a little bit more context. Actually, we read the quote. We all were dead silent for, I don't know, maybe a minute. And somebody said, you should just read the quote and let people think about it for 5 minutes, and that should be the sermon. And that sort of is going to be what we're going to do. But let me just set a little context. Let me set context A in the context of the Transfiguration very quickly, but B also in the context of Lent. So there's a lot going on in the Transfiguration, but surely one of the things that is going on is that they come to be in this very good place, a mountaintop, a peak experience, one of the best experiences of all of life, and they can't stay there. Peter wants to, James and John wants to. I expect Jesus wanted to. I mean, Jesus is finally talking to people. He's in this world where nobody gets him. And if you've ever felt like people don't get you, I mean, you can be surrounded by all kinds of people, but if you feel like nobody gets you, what an incredibly lonely place to be, right? So Jesus is in this place, and finally he's got two people with him who get him, and they're talking, and but he knows he's got to come down. Peter, James, and John, I mean, it's been hard. They're up there. It's Peter, Moses and Elijah. I mean, why would you ever want to come down? But Jesus says we got to come down. And the dynamic is no matter how good something is, we can't just keep it for ourselves. We can't stay on the mountaintop. What we absolutely must do, this is the dynamic by which Jesus comes into the world, dies for us, and is raised again, is that we've got to continually experience God's goodness because it's good, yes, but then come down off the good mountaintop to share what we have to other people, to elevate them until that day we're all on the mountain, right? As long as there's anybody who's not on the mountain, we need to come down off the mountain. And to fail to come down off the mountain is to be selfish. And that's why so many good things, I mean, and they are good, don't misunderstand me, they're really good things, but in and of themselves, they just become exercises in selfishness. So you can think of all the good things that are sort of trendy today, and I hear more and more people talking about this, by the way, but you can think of things like all the self-help. I mean, self-help literature, by and large, there's a lot of good stuff in it. You can think of things like mindfulness or meditation, which are really big in the world, but there are a number of people, and again, secular theorists are saying flat out, mindfulness is not enough. Because all mindfulness really does is it just ends in you. And that's not a good life, right? Exercise, it's a great thing. I mean, we can just go down the list of all these things are good. But if they never, and they bring blessings in our life, but if we never move beyond these good things to come down off the mountain and share what we have, to give our time, resources, energy, attention, and money for the benefit of other people who aren't in our own singular little circles, then these things are just illusions that make us feel better, that justify our own selfishness, so that we can keep doing what we're doing simply because, what the heck, we can't. And so the dynamic of the Transfiguration is this dynamic that calls us to do good. I mean, that's Jesus doesn't save us just to go to heaven. Yes, he saves us to go to heaven. That is important. But he doesn't save us just to go to heaven. He saves us because by God's grace and with God's help, we'll do good in the world and become the kind of creatures that are fit for heaven. Right? That's both sides of the gospel. One side, if you only get one side or the other, that's only half a gospel. Yes, God saves us, but God doesn't save us just to go to heaven. He saves us to make us creatures fit by his grace and his help, that will do those good works that make us creatures fit for heaven. Those two got to go together, right? And that's so explicit in Jesus' teaching, the sheep and the goats and scriptures like that. And then Lent becomes this season where we consider the state of our lives and consider the good that we could be doing. How are we making the world less good? And we say, what do I need to do to change that? And really, the one option, if we're taking Jesus seriously, the only option we can't do is to do nothing, right? Because if you, like me, are not doing all the good in the world right now that you want to do, that you know you can do, that you know God is calling you to do, then if all we do is nothing, and why do we do nothing? Because we can, right? Well, maybe this quote will help us think about the consequences. And this is again Daniel Nayeri. This is Everything Sad is Untrue. And, you know, I think one of the great things about this book is this guy has such a gift with words. He's just an absolute master. And so he writes about things that we all know, but we don't have the words for. And he puts them in words that, anyhow, here's the quote. And he is an immigrant kid who has come into a grade school where he gets, and he comes from Syria, So lumped in with Middle Eastern areas, comes to sort of I think he comes to Oklahoma. And as you can imagine, he's not very well received there. And you'll pick that up in this. Imagine you're evil. Not misunderstood, not sad, but evil. Imagine that you've got a heart that spends all day wanting more. Imagine your mind is a selfish room full of pride or pity. Imagine you're like Brandon Goff, and you find poor kids in the halls and make fun of their clothes, and you flick their ears until they scream in pain and swing their arms, and so you pin them down and break their fingers. And he's writing autobiographically at this point. Brandon Goff is a real kid. Or you can spit in his food in the cafeteria. Or you can just call him things like cockroach and sand monkey. Imagine you're evil, and you don't do any of those things. But you're like Julie Jenkins, and you laugh at everything Brandon does, and you even help when a teacher comes and asks what's going on, and you say, nothing's going on, and the teacher believes you because you get A+ in English. Or imagine you just watch all this, and you act like you're disgusted, but because you don't like meanness, but you don't do anything, and you don't tell anyone. Imagine how much you've got compared to all the kids in the world getting blown up or starved, and all the good you could do if you spent even half a second thinking about it. Suddenly, evil isn't punching people or even hating them. Suddenly, it's all that stuff you've left undone. All the kindness you could have given. All the excuses you gave instead. Imagine that for a moment. Imagine what it means. Well, anyway, don't get too upset. You can always find somebody worse acting than you and say, at least I'm not as bad as that guy. And you can feel good and go to the mall and go back to being evil. So you've got to decide whether evil is the right word or not. But it strikes me that it well may be. And then the next question becomes, are you, am I, forget about anybody and everything else, are you, am I willing to be evil? And if not, what the heck are you going to do about it? And the one thing you cannot do is simply keep doing what you're doing now. Something has to change. And that's Lent, figuring that out. And one thing that I would ask you to do is to come on Wednesday nights. 5 Wednesday nights. And it starts with dinner, but you don't have to come for dinner. The program starts at 7, goes to 8, and what we're going to do for all 5 weeks is we're going to consider, it's going to be 5 components to being steadfast and doing good. 5 things that are absolutely essential if you want to be the kind of person who doesn't just think about good, or maybe doesn't even think about good, but actually does good in the world. These have to be in place. We're going to talk about those. I'll make a little presentation, about 15 minutes. We'll spend some time in small groups then actually talking about how we can do these things. For those who wish, will come into the congregation, say Compline, or you can just go home at the end of that. But it is a step you can take to actually do good. And whatever you do, whatever you do, my prayer is that as followers of Jesus, or simply people who want to stop being evil, we'll do something other than just doing what we can, all the while thinking we're good people. Amen.